Alex Petropoulos, political commentator with Young Voices UK. Alex, good morning.
Good morning, Rosie. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, it's brilliant to have you. The Guardian then is reporting this exclusive saying the Home Office is going to launch a major operation to detain asylum seekers across Britain today. And the idea really is weeks earlier than was expected. I mean, is this good news?
Anything but good news, Rosie. That last bit of happening weeks earlier than expected is the really important thing here, which is that what this looks like and what people are accusing it of being is this looks like it's the government using the civil service, the government taking this issue and using what would be regular civil service appointments with asylum seekers and politicizing them and turning them into this tool to create headlines, to provoke reactions ahead of local elections. And so you have the Rwanda program, which on the face is, both economically nonsensical, costing millions and millions, completely disproportionate amounts of money per person we're sending. But then at the same time, you have this morally, honestly aghast program that is now also being coupled with, I'd say, blatant electioneering. So, yeah.
I mean, that's part of the Prime Minister's job, isn't it?
I mean, I don't think it's the Prime Minister's job to win elections. I think it's his job to serve the country. And I think that, to be honest, it's pretty clear that when they're given the option to do things on schedule or to rush things ahead and make sure that things are flashy and make sure that things appear and, appear in The Guardian, there's a pretty clear line being drawn in the sand that's saying...
Yeah, Alex, I'm not sure anyone who wanted the Rwanda policy to be rushed would be very satisfied with the pace.
That's very true. And to be honest, it's not really about... This brings us back to what the whole policy is about to begin with. It's not about actually delivering, despite what Rishi Sunak always wants to promise that he's a prime minister about delivering. It's just about saying, it's just about provoking, it's just about a message. It's about a signal you have to send to potential immigrants to the country, which doesn't seem to be working.
Well, he would say that, look, the fact that migrants have been going to Ireland is evidence that the Rwanda plan is a deterrent.
I think, well, those numbers are too small, I think, to be able to draw anything conclusive from. But at the same time, this example of Ireland sort of points in the face what could have been with the Rwanda plan, what could have been a policy, which is sending migrants back to France. And Rishi Sunak says, oh, well, France won't accept that. And to that, I sort of think that that's just almost cope. It's saying, well, France would never say this, we shouldn't try this. I think that when we dealt with migrants in the past, when we dealt with migrants at a European scale, we sort of negotiated with Turkey and we said, we'll give you some migrants back and in return we'll take some legitimate ones and it'll act as this deterrent. I think that Ireland saying we'll just send them back to the UK is them coming to the easy, logical conclusion of how you deal with these things that we should have come to from the start of all this mess.
Yeah. I mean, Alex, you said the Prime Minister's job is to serve the country. It's also his job to serve his party. But I guess the confidence that the party has in the Prime Minister, it may be that they feel like they're stuck with this option. Inside the Times this morning, it says Tory rebels plot to oust Sunak and start this 100-day election blitz. I mean, what do you think the strategy should be from the Conservatives? A policy blitz or a leadership challenge?
Well, it's one of the first times in a few months that I found myself agreeing with some Tory MPs. It's been some bad months, but I agree in the sense that Rishi Sunak is maybe outlived his stay, but I don't think that removing him for the Tory party is the right move for them. It might be the right move for the country, but then you're looking at a general election. I think that in theory, this sort of staying the course, sticking to the plan and hoping that things will turn around is the only realistic option. I think that there are lots of policy things that you could be doing, to be honest, if you're the Tory party, that they're not doing. There are lots of things that are on the table that are being ignored.
Well, should I tell you some of the rebels in their 100-day election blitz? These are things they could be doing: trying to end the junior doctors' pay dispute, pledging to reduce net migration, increasing defence spending to 3%, cutting the benefits bill, and new legislation to jail prolific offenders. Do you think that would be enough of a policy blitz?
No, because I think that those are focusing on all the wrong policies. All of those are actually spending money, believe it or not, and beyond benefits. But those all sound like incredibly expensive policies at pretty marginal, weak benefits. I think that going for planning reform, I think going for, policies that will actually start the economy growing, which was Rishi Sunak's key promise, it's still enough time for them to sort of have a few months of good growth and say, look, we've turned the economy around. At what point did the Tory party turn from being this party saying, look, we're going to focus on the economy, we're going to focus on growth, to now being this party saying, oh, well, actually, we're just sort of going to give up on that and just sort of throw money around for where we think our base will like it?
Well, there's one potential way about how they're going to move where they're spending the money, which is the front page of the Times saying, millions on disability benefits face welfare reforms, which could be that you don't get those payments for depression, anxiety, sickness benefits could cease for many, many people. It's going to be the argument that ministers are going to make today.
Yeah, I think the overarching story with a lot of these reforms is that I'm not immediately opposed to reform here, to saying, we maybe shouldn't have a one size fits all benefits and welfare system. However, any sort of reform should come at the same time as looking at a wider scale reform. And I think people rightly point out that there isn't enough mental health support currently within the system. So how can you talk about trying to change and cut and tweak that system when it is already insufficient? Maybe if we were at the point where everyone was getting access to mental health support that was properly sort of addressing problems before they arose, then we'd be able to say, okay, in this marginal case, maybe we need some less money to go here. I think that people in the country generally do agree that mental health is a very important problem and that there currently isn't enough access. Once we get to the point where there is enough access, happy to have this conversation.
Yeah, I think the idea is that instead, what's going to be proposed is meaningful support instead of necessarily financial help. So that could be talking therapies, social care packages. Mel Stride said, look, the system shouldn't be paying people to deal with the ordinary difficulties of life, but instead sort of overhauling those benefits and helping you deal with the mental health problems rather than sort of dealing with that with a financial incentive.
Yes, and that makes sense. I think that there's a part of me that's saying, why not just do both? And the answer is money. I think that there are already financial incentives for people to. But I don't think the finances act as an incentive. I think the financial incentive is people working, and there already exists that incentive. Yeah. The finances exist to support, and there's a real risk of, if we take away that support before offering a proper alternative. And it's very easy to say we'll offer these sessions, when in reality the logistical realities might mean that there just aren't enough space. There just isn't enough. There aren't enough people willing to do this job to meet that gap. So it concerns me.
There's a much more on this in the front page of the Times. And as I said, Mel Stride will be on Times Radio. Times Radio breakfast a little bit later, so stick with us throughout the morning. A few stories away from politics, Alex. Inside the paper, don't be a detox dupe, shoppers are told. I think we kind of know this, don't we? But which have done some research. Collagen creams. Do you use any of these, by the way? Detox teas, vitamin shots. They're kind of wellness trends that we see. But, the conclusion is that is a real expensive waste of money. I mean, we know this, don't we?
Yeah, I had a detox shot with my brother the other day, and we both felt a little bit more nutritious and
explain
healthier.
This detox shot. What was it?
It's like a little. It's a really tiny. It's like a packaged shot glass, and you get, essentially it's just a shot of apple juice. Is what you end up having, but it's packaged as, you get all this vitamin C, you get this zinc. It sort of helps immune boosting. But at the end of the day, I think we do know that this stuff is probably not doing as much as it says.
And yet you bought it and you drank it.
Here's the important thing. I think this shows that there is appetite amongst the British people for preventative healthcare, for sort of getting your health better before it gets worse. And I think this is something that is clearly showing that there's a gap in the market. This is something that the NHS isn't providing enough of, that people want. And so I think there's a really interesting conversation to be had there about what can we do to sort of bridge that gap and sort of prevent lots of diseases happening before they happen. It's very easy to say it but to do
Basically,
it
you're
is a
saying
lot
there's
harder.
appetite for people to make better decisions when it comes to their health, but maybe we are being enticed in by something that is not so savvy. I mean, the research said that some vitamin shots, they cost about £2 or more for just 60 millilitres. That's the same price per litre as champagne.
I have to tell you, it tastes a lot. Doesn't taste nearly as good as champagne as well.
But it's apparently the main ingredient is typically fruit juice, which would be a very expensive fruit juice for £2 per 60 millilitres. Anyway, I think we're kind of aware of that, aren't we? But at least we're trying to make healthier decisions. Paris is, of course, going to be home of the Olympics this summer. I'm very excited for it. Inside the Times this morning, let the tipping games begin. Now, I don't know what you're like, but when you go to a new place, it can be quite confusing what you're supposed to tip, how you're supposed to tip. It looks like in Paris, the expectation is the tipping culture is to arrive.
Yeah, and Paris has traditionally never had tipping. It's always been baked in. The service charge has always been baked in, I think 15% to whatever you pay. But I think this is coming alongside the wave of these. You go to these restaurants and stuff, you see these automated machines that you use to pay with card, and they'll turn it around to you. And they come from America, so they all have these default option of, pay 10% gratuity, pay 20% gratuity. And I feel like we've accidentally imported American tipping culture. We've done this in the UK. I'm seeing it in other countries, and I guess now it's happening in France. And I think it really is a battle of your your ability to be a bit socially awkward and sort of just press the no button while looking the service worker straight in the eyes.
Yes.
Because you get these situations where you're standing at like a Starbucks or at some counter, and the person has literally pressed a button for you and handed you something, and that is the level of service they're provided. And they turn around this device and like, would you like to pay 30% tip for this great service I just provided you where I pressed the button?
Yes, and in America, it is actually sort of baked into the salary expectations of the staff. Particularly that's what waiters say. But in France, it looks like one of the preset options to leave a tip is often 20%. And you're right, there is that moment of awkwardness where you think, well, now I don't want to seem ungenerous. I definitely don't want to seem mean, but that does maybe seem a bit excessive. So, well, if you're going to Paris, if you're one of the 15 million going to see the games, you may be faced with that decision in a restaurant. Alex, thank you so much. Political commentator with Young Voices UK, going through the papers with me this morning.